Ash, journalist and writer, not much introduction needed really. He comes today to talk about his books, all Mallorca thrillers, and his not that quiet life on the island. Hugh, you've been living many years on the island now. How does it influence your life and your work?
It's a much nicer life in Mallorca.
Yeah, of course.
Nobody can deny that. In terms of influencing my work, yeah, it influences my work to a great degree because it's been a big wake-up call that there is something very different. Having worked in London and Fleet Street and in the United States and Canada and elsewhere, as a journalist, I came here really to write books, but it turns out that because of the needs of the newspaper industry, I was being pulled back into that by friends who would call me and say, please, will you do a job for us? And it kind of grew from there. But I wasn't very happy with it. I've been a journalist for many years, and it would have been a nice challenge, a fresh approach to life. By being a writer, by writing novels.
Has it been a major change for you to write a novel instead of a couple of paragraphs of an article?
There is a very, very, very big difference for the simple reason that normally I have to tell a story in maybe 10 paragraphs. The type of newspapers I work for have always been tabloid newspapers. I've always had one foot in the gutter, so to speak. And that doesn't mean to say that the standard of journalism isn't high. It can be very high. The editor of The Guardian newspaper once said to me, he said, I admire your ability to write things crisply and briefly. He said, what you can say in 200 words, my writers have to say in 2,000 words. So there is that element to it. And it's not necessarily the fact that if you've been a journalist, particularly working for tabloid newspapers, you can make a good book writer, because it is an entirely different discipline. And really, when I sit down and write a book, I haven't a clue how many words I'm going to be writing. I'll do a check after maybe a month or two and see if I've written 5,000 or 6,000, and I don't work on the basis that I'm aiming to reach 90 or 100,000 words. The first book, this one, is 103,000. The second book is less value, unfortunately. It's only 92,000, and the third one, I don't know, but. After when I finish with the story, writing it is one thing, editing it is another, because it can take you 6 months, 8 months to write the book, and it can take you another 2 or 3 months to edit it. And then it goes to a publisher, and the publisher has an editor, and he or she will then decide. You have to rewrite certain chapters and things like that. So yeah, it's a different discipline, and it's one that I quite enjoy. We've had some success, thankfully, with the Mallorca Assignment. The next one is the Mallorca Correspondent, which is with my agent in London at the moment. I'd like it to be translated into Spanish, particularly, and the German market is also a very big market, and particularly with Mallorca. So, to go back to your original question, Mallorca has made a major difference to both my life, my wife's life, and my family's life. Believe it or not, it took not in terms of writing time, but it took 10 years to produce. Because when we first arrived, and I decided I was going to write books, after a while I got the idea that I would like to write a thriller, and the theme would be about using Mallorca as the base for a terrorist plot, and everything was going fine until I think March, April 2004, when the Madrid bombs went off, and there was the major attack there. 191 people died, many thousands more were injured. And my editor in London said to me, basically what you were writing about has actually happened. So your book is dead.
Yeah.
she came back to me a couple of years ago and said, look, I've had to think about it. Times have moved on. What you're talking about, world terrorism, hasn't changed. So the theme of the book is still good, it's still strong, and I'd like you to pick it up and carry it on. Yeah, all the books have to have a basis of contemporary news value to them. I'm a newspaper man at heart. So if I write about one, the second one, the Mallorca Correspondent, deals with Eastern European mafia, and cyber war, secrets and so forth, and blackmail and drugs. The third one, the new one, which has the working title of the Mallorca Money Changer. Mallorca's in all the titles. Yeah. The Mallorca Money Changer is about money laundering and also narcotics with South American drug gangs. Again, there's also slight links to terrorism because these are all the contemporary themes. Yeah. But there are things going on. This is a very interesting island, but we have wonderful weather, intriguing history, amazing history, and very remarkable people, the Mallorquins, unique people. But there is a very dark side to Mallorca, and I'm exploring the dark side to it. And all my books have characters that obviously are fictional, but all the locations are real. And I like to include some of the real history of Mallorca, not invented history about it.
The main character of your books is a female Spanish police officer, Mercedes Ibáñez. Why female?
Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'll tell you why. Because I think if you look, certainly for the in British fiction, you look at the number of detectives there have been, nearly always men. Hercule Poirot, all right, he's Belgian, of course, but he was created by an English writer. Yeah. Sherlock Holmes, James Bond. Very rarely do you get a woman who plays the leading role. And I created the character Mercedes Ibáñez as the detective who leads the Mallorca murder squad. And although she might not like me saying this, it's partly based on my daughter because they're about the same age, and they have kind of similar looks. And if I was casting the film, I would want somebody like Penelope Cruz to play this character.
We won't go for less.
Knowing how much resolve my daughter has got, and we live in a world of equal opportunity, and as a father of a daughter, I want my daughter to have the same opportunities as my three sons, including my stepson. So, and I wanted to look inside her, because she comes over, she's arrogant, she's haughty, she's very, very intelligent. She treats people not particularly well. But behind her, behind the facade, there is a fragility. When I tell her personal story, you can see why she is who she is. And she's a woman of today. She's a modern woman. She has a career, and her career is a very important aspect. In fact, it's all she's got in her life, but there are reasons why. And one or two of her colleagues, although they are a little disdainful, and they call her La Condesa, the Countess, because she is extremely aristocratic in her attitude, but they have a great deal of admiration for her because she gets the job done.
Writer's day routine, how does it look like?
In the main, if I'm writing, it can be 4 or 5 hours. Sometimes I go to bed and wake up at maybe 2 o'clock in the morning, and an idea occurs to me, and something happens in my head, and I have to go and write. And I could write till 5 or 6 in the morning. It's not always the case. I try and keep to a regime where I know I'm not a very good starter in the mornings. It takes me 3 or 4 hours and several cups of coffee and tea, and I have to look at the newspapers and the internet. So around about 11, 12 o'clock I start to write, and I'll write through till maybe 6 o'clock. And at 6 o'clock I stop. We'll have a nice glass of vino tinto and decide whether we're going to eat at home or whether we're going to eat out.
That sounds like easygoing. Maybe I should try.
All right. People say to me all the time, I have a book in me. I'd like to, but I don't know how to write it. Somebody said it to me the other day. And I said, well, you find a beginning at some point in your life. If you're going to write an autobiography, and everybody should.
Thanks for your time, Hugh, and good luck with your next crime book from Mallorca.
Thanks very much indeed, Hanna. Nice to see you.